What's going on, everyone? My name is Machine Gun Hunt. Welcome to another Destiny 2 video. And today we're finally closing down our favorite builds with Beyond Light slash 2021 with all three of our classes. So lastly, what we're going to do is Titan. And yeah, there's actually some pretty simple things, pretty awesome things, and just some things that probably wouldn't be as useful anymore. However, the best thing I want to do is go ahead and give you guys some builds that are going to work no matter what timeline of Destiny's history is. That is my biggest goal. So, unless there's something very major that Bungie changes into the future, hopefully this video would not age so badly so that you can actually have some very useful builds in the future. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to focus on 4 builds from each subclass, and I'll do the best of my ability to narrow it down because I have so much builds with my Titan that it's not even funny. Alright, so first off, what we have here is the Sunbreaker Titan. Burn the world. Gee, why on earth would you call a build so terrifying that, Hunt? Well, it's actually kind of simple. What we're doing is we're taking advantage of the explosion factor with our hammers, as well as Sun Warrior with the benefits that you get from using this build. So it's pretty simple. The goal of this build is to chuck as much grenades as possible, using our abilities to go ahead and restore our health and making sunspots. And the cool thing about sunspots is that when you pass through a sunspot, you recharge faster, your super lasts longer, and it increases the damage your weapons deal. So a Sun Warrior is actually a very beneficial, subclass that you could use for your support for other Guardians. So yeah, if you don't want to be a Defender Bubble, but you still want to do support, you can do this with Bottom Tree Sunbreaker. So you can have a whole bunch of different options right here. What I've decided to do is focus on discipline because it's the easiest thing to focus on, simply because of the factor of sunspots as well as using certain grenades with the Sunbreaker. And for that case, it's the Thermite Grenade. Thermite Grenade is excellent for PvE, and you could just kill several enemies by using this grenade. Exotics are actually pretty important with this build. I personally like using Sunshot. However, if you do use Vex Mythic class or any explosive solar exotic or weapon, like for example, if you use Vision of Confluence with Firefly, that will work very well with this build as well. Maybe something with Explosive Payload would help out too. But the goal is to have Sunshot. Sunshot is probably the best thing simply because you have this little ability right here. Target kills with Sunshot explode in solar energy. So that's very, very important, especially with the kind of mods that we have here. Now, the cool thing is, since we have Sunburn as well, this makes it so that this weapon fires explosive rounds and highlights targets that take damage from Sunshot. So, pretty good if you ask me. Alright, so what's actually important with this build is that you have certain energies with your armor, and what's unfortunate about this build is that you need to have everything that's solar with the exception of one armor piece, and that is your gauntlets. What you want is have stasis here. Now, this is like an everyday build, so you're not going to focus on champion mods as much. However, you can still do that. You just won't have as much grenade energy available. This is actually good for, everyday stuff like strikes, gambits, maybe some nightfalls, especially like raids when they don't have any champions or whatever. However, you can still work with that if you have just one mod here. Like for example, bows have overload with minotaurs and the Vault of Glass. So you probably want to use a bow and arrow, and then you could just have a grenade kickstart here, for example. However, since we're not doing that right now, we'll just have 2 grenade kickstarts. So, mods all together. All right, so first off, what we have here is the helmet, solar, and it really depends on what kind of weapons you have here. I personally like to use blinding grenade launchers and a linear fusion rifle that is solar here. This is a solar-based build, so we're going to use a solar fusion rifle, but it really depends on what you want to use. We have Well Ordnance. Picking up a solar elemental well grants you additional grenade energy. Multiple copies of this mod increases its effect. so that's pretty good. But we also have here is elemental armaments. Combatant weapon final blows with a damage type that matches your subclass element have an escalating chance to spawn an elemental well. Now that is why we have Sunshot as well as Conjurer's Wrath, so we can make as much elemental wells as possible. So you have your grenades, which you're gonna have pretty quickly because I put in 100 discipline here. Plus, we do have Sunspot, which makes the cell will recharge even faster. Plus, we have wells, and that just make our grenades like coming in automatically. And plus, we have Kickstart, so we're pretty much OP on the grenade department. That is the goal of this build, chucking as much grenades as possible. Now, what we have here is a third mod here. Again, we are using linear fusion rifle, but again, it is up to you. What we do have here that's most importantly is Phantomite. Picking up an elemental well that matches your subclass energy type grants a temporary bonus to weapon damage of that same elemental type. Very, very important, especially if you want to go ahead and increase your Sunshot abilities, which, yes, I do want. But what's also important is that it also stacks with using Sun Warrior as well. Since you do have increased amounts of damage with your weapons that you deal with, Phantomite actually stacks with that as well, so it gives you more damage. So basically, you throw your grenade, you stand on a sunspot, you kill even more enemies with hopefully having Phantomite activated with you using either using a grenade or your sunshot, and then you have increased damage not just from Phantomite but from Sun Warrior as well, which makes your sunshot and your linear fusion rifle extremely dangerous with loads of damage. Now, I'm not done with that. I'm gonna do even more damage with my linear fusion rifle and sunshot. I do have another elemental ordnance here just to give more grenade energy. However, what you could also do is have rapidly defeating enemies with explosive damage spawns elemental well, so you can do that if you want to mix with, like, I don't know, Warmind cells or whatever. What you could also do is picking up a soul elemental well grants increased regeneration for a short period of time. Now, the reason why I have this is, more grenade energy, but I could also use Well of Life for just simply having more survivability. However, sunspots do have myself like staying alive for a long time, so I'm just using Well of Ordnance right here. And plus, we have recuperation and any scavenger mod that you want. Since using linear fusion rifle, that's what I have right here. Just for a little tip for you guys, it has nothing to do with the video, but also before Witch Queen actually starts, you should unequip all of your seasonal mods so that, in the past there was some glitches going on where the mods would not be available anymore, but it's still equipped to your armor, which glitches out your armor, and they won't patch that until, the next week or so, which isn't good. So I recommend that you get rid of your seasonal mods the day before that, so that would happen to you guys. So for now, I'm using Fusion Scavenger because it's very handy. And then, of course, what we have here is any sort of mod that you want. We do have particle deconstruction. You don't have to do that. You can also use explosive finisher. Finishers restore grenades, requires 1/5 of your super energy. You have several builds here as well. For example, again, Well of Life. You can have, let's see here, even more stuff. Like, for example, you can get elemental charge, so you can get charge of light. You could take advantage with, high energy fire. You could take advantage with, protective light if you're willing to sacrifice a void grenade. So you can do all that stuff. However, what's probably best here is either having a seasonal mod that's available that's doing maximum amounts of damage, or what I would probably recommend is having some sort of explosive well maker or bountiful wells or something. Just have it so you can have more wells available, and then maybe like high energy fire in case you want to do that. This is the build. You just simply go ahead and either shoot or throw as much grenades as possible. And what's also good is you have this exotic right here. Solar Final Blows periodically grant you an escalating bonus to weapon damage. You're harder to slow and freeze with stasis, which is pretty good with some enemies throwing stasis at you. And when you break out, you take no damage from doing so, creating a burst of solar energy around yourself. So we're not really focused on the second part. We're focusing on the first part. Solar final blows periodically grant you an escalating bonus to weapon damage. So this actually stacks. I'm pretty sure it's either 3 times or 5 times. So we not only have sunspots increasing your damage, we not only have Font of Might increasing your damage, but we also have the Path of Burning Steps, which increases your damage. So you're doing loads of damage while you're going ahead and dealing as much DPS as possible. If you want to go even more crazy, you could just simply use, I don't know, you could use, for example, elemental charge, since you're getting a whole bunch of elemental wells, and you could just simply get rid of like particle deconstruction, and then you could have, I don't know, high energy fire. So you can have the most damage as possible while doing this build, for example. And the cool thing about this build is you can mix and match anything you want. As you can see right here, I was using a freaking shotgun because, this is an excellent shotgun. I could go ahead and use, I don't know, um, you know, I could just use a random submachine gun if I wanted to. It's probably not that handy, but hey, I play Destiny. I use whatever. I don't apologize. Let's say I have a shotgun that's really good, So you could do all sorts of cool things with this. So for now, I just have like a, nice little shotgun right here. So yeah, that's the first build, Burn the World, influenced by the Joker, of course. So let's go ahead and get to our next build, which is, you've probably seen a variety of these type of builds before, but it's that powerful. We're talking, of course, about the Yeet Titan. Pretty simple. You can make any sort of builds like you want using the Yeet Titan, but we do have Thunder Crash right here, the most important thing possible. And then, of course, we have Ballistic Slam, Inertia Override, as well as Impact Conversion. It just makes it so that your Ballistic Slam and your Inertia Override is a lot easier to use. I do love using this build for Deep Stone Crypt. As you can see, I do have a shotgun that's good for, the security room. Plus, I do have elements that makes it so that I do increase damage against the boss. The only thing I need to change is, I don't know, for Tanix, the final room, so I'll just go ahead and switch to 1,000 Voices. And then I do have a bow, which is a, arc-based bow, and it's perfect because it's really, really good against champions. Vorpal weapon, plus I do have an overload bow here. So, really, really good. This build is perfect for Deep Stone Crypt. So, it's as simple as you can get. Falling Star increases your damage with Thunder Crash. It's probably the most simplest build in this video. But I do want to show you guys my build entirely. I do have 100 recovery, so I can have maximum survivability in case I get damaged using Thunder Crash. I do have 100 intellect, so I can go ahead and use as much Thunder Crashes as possible. I do have the minimum amounts of resilience that is required for any high-end activity, so that's very, very good. I'll probably use this build for the next raid if Thunder Crash is usable. I probably won't switch a darn thing with this anyway. And then I have some mods, of course, taking charge as well as protective light. Very, very useful, of course, for survivability. And then this mod will not be available later on as of this video being recorded. But if it's available, Focusing Lens is extremely powerful simply because your light abilities deal bonus damage to combatants affected by stasis, which is Thunder Crash. So if stasis is being used with your fire team, you're doing the maximum amount of damage as possible just by using Falling Star as well as Focusing Lens. It's always good to use Focusing Lens for a high damaging super, either with Celestial Nighthawk or Thunder Crash, so you can do the maximum amount of damage as possible. Now, we'll just go ahead and check out our mods. Helmet, pretty simple. We're using Sword Ammo Finder just to keep our Lament, our damage as high as possible. Now, what's very important is that Lament is not only used for damage, but it's also used for defense too. Look at this guard efficiency and guard endurance and guard resistance. It's some of the highest in the entire game. What a lot of people don't use this weapon for is defense. So let's say, for example, I go ahead and do a Thunder Crash against a big bad boss and he doesn't die. Well, I still have some shields remaining from using that Thunder Crash thanks to Falling Star, but what if there's a whole bunch of enemies around me? I could just go ahead and switch to Lament, and then I could shield myself with Protective Life, so this guarantees my survivability. So Lament, for some reason, not only has great offense, but great defense as well. And it's excellent for little utilities such as that. And what's also important is this is basically an updated build later on into the future, because as soon as Witch Queen drops, we're basically going to have several mods that are going to take place where we have to equip mods in order to get Orbs of Light while using weapons. So that means using Point of the Stag, since it's masterwork and we can generate orbs on multi kills. That's not going to happen anymore. The only thing that's going to affect this weapon is its stats. However, what's going to happen is that there's going to be some mods available that are going to increase our Orbs of Light power. So, guess what? Orbs of Light isn't going to be as strong anymore. So what I've done with this build is that I am using Elemental Charge for getting my Charge of Light with Protective Light. But Machine Gun, how are you going to make wells when you don't have either stasis or solar abilities? Those are the best ways to make elemental wells. You are correct on that factor. However, what I decided to do is go ahead and put in Elemental Light, defeating a combatant with your super spawns, an elemental well that matches your subclass energy type, as well as Supreme Well Maker, casting your super spawns 3 stasis elemental wells near you. It does not apply to Crucible, Trials, or Iron Banner. So basically, because of these two mods, I have an ability to make wells while I'm launching myself towards the boss, which makes elemental wells for not only myself, for my teammates right next to them, and I am making a well once I defeat an opponent thanks to elemental light. So I can make as much elemental wells as possible. So because of that, I don't have to worry about taking charge or whatever being useless. I now have elemental charge, so I can go ahead and get my protective light right here. So sometimes you got to improvise with your builds, and you got to think things through. So yeah, this is my build. I have sword reserves, fusion rifle loader with 1,000 voices. But yeah, this is pretty much my build. One of my most favorite builds. Pretty simple to use. You don't have to think about much of anything while using this build. It's just very, very handy, and I think it's going to be very, very useful for once the Witch Queen is available. All right, so that means we're going to the next build. And unfortunately, as of this video being recorded, it's not at full power, simply because Bungie had made a patch where Diamond Lances are not usable right now. Let me go ahead and explain how this works. This is what is called, at least the Destiny community is calling, the Datto build. Datto recently made a video talking about his favorite Behemoth build and how he thinks is extremely useful to use for high-end activities or just everyday play. Simply because of a certain weapon that became available recently, and that is AS Luna. Now, what's the most important factor of this build is that you need to have AS Luna with Headstone. If you don't have AS Luna, then the Vigabond, which is the sidearm, actually it's right here, the Peace Bond, I'm sorry. If you have a Headstone, a Peace Bond as well, it works for this build, but AS Luna is obviously better because it's a hand cannon, and hand cannons are better at PvE. So, important thing here is you want to have Glacier Grenade, and then you also want to have all 5 of these mods available too. Now, since this mod isn't available, it's simply because Diamond Lance is disabled, as you can see right here. I can't equip it at all. So, it gives you 3 fragment slots. So, unfortunately, I only have 2 right now with Howl of the Storm. But that's okay, simply because this is actually a very good aspect as well for getting rid of your Glacier grenades. So, what we have here, Whisper of Fissures, increases the damage and size of the burst of stasis while you destroy a stasis crystal or defeating a frozen target. We have Whisperer of Rending. I don't know how to say words. Kinetic weapons do increase damage to stasis crystals and frozen targets. So what this does is it makes it so that if you shoot your AS Luna to a crystal, it's a one tap, it will explode automatically, which is very, very good with this build. We have Whisper of Bonds. Defeating a frozen target grants you super energy. Yes, please. We have Whisper of Shards. Shattering a stasis crystal temporarily boosts your grenade charge rate. Shattering additional stasis crystals increases the duration of this benefit. And if we have the Diamond Lance available, while you are near frozen targets or a friendly stasis crystal, you take reduced damage from the target, which is actually good for, defensive capabilities. Now, what is the most important part of this build is Teutonic Harvest. This makes it so that when you're shattering a stasis crystal, you get a stasis shard available. This shard grants melee energy and when picked up by you or your allies. So it's quite simple. You throw a glacier grenade, you go ahead and use your hand cannon, one tap to take out your glacier, shards. Then you go ahead and get stasis crystals so you can get your crystal shards. And then you can have a whole bunch of benefits that you get by using all of these fragments. So yeah, that is the build. It basically takes full advantage of using your stasis crystals and your walls and all of that stuff. These two weapons, it really does not matter what you use. I personally like using 1,000 Voices because it's a good gun. Alright, so for mods, this is actually the most important part of the build. Basically, Fontamite. And then you want to have a combination of elemental shards, high energy fire, elemental charge, as well as, you don't really need it that much, elemental time dilatation. Dilatation. I don't know words. Anyway. Basically what's going to happen here, you throw your glacier grenade, you use your AS Luna to take out the glacier grenade. You go ahead and pick up a shard. When you pick up a shard, stasis shards counts as stasis elemental wells for you. So every shard that you pick up, it counts as a well, which is good for cooldowns for all of your abilities. When you pick them up, it's going to count as an elemental charge. This makes it so that you are charged with light. When you are charged with light, this makes it so that you can use high energy fire. Now, the cool thing about these shards is it's basically a double whammy. When you pick up a shard, you not only have high energy fire available, but you have Fontamite, because the stasis crystal counts as an elemental well. This makes it so that you have more damage of the same weapon type, which, by the way, is going to be AS Luna. And then you have a whole bunch of abilities you could use for AS Luna for doing as much damage as possible. So you have Fontamite and High Energy Fire being taken advantage of with using AS Luna because it is a stasis hand cannon. Just by picking up an elemental shard. Very powerful, very ridiculous, and this lasts for a long time, so you can do as much damage as possible while using this build. Now, me personally, I love using Unrelenting, because it triggers health regeneration. The cool thing about it is, if you're using Headstone and kill a whole bunch of enemies using Headstone, then it's basically a guaranteed heal. So it's not only an offensive build, it's also a defensive build. Extremely powerful. I've been using this build for a while now. Very, very strong. And yeah, it's very, very good. Now, what you want to do is, what's cool about this build is you have lots of flexibility as well. You could go ahead and have like some scavenger mods, as well as like recuperation, for example. You could have conductive dampener, or have even more fusion rifle ammo. There's plenty of room to put in certain amounts of champion mods, and then of course you have some extra room for taking care of ammo finders. What's also important is you do want to focus on stats a little bit. The cool thing is there's lots of cooldowns going on with this build, so you don't need it as much. You will get your super pretty easily thanks to killing enemies with your stasis crystals, which is pretty good. You do get your grenade pretty fast while you're doing this. Plus, as you're picking up shards, you're getting loads of strength, basically. So basically, the only thing that you need to worry about is recovery as well as resilience. And then as a tertiary stat, I'll probably choose either discipline or intellect. So I don't know. I guess the perfect build for me would be like 100 recovery, maybe 70 intellect, and then like 70 discipline, and then I would have like 70 resilience here. So that's just my personal recommendation. You can choose any stats you want, just don't use mobility because, it's not good for a Titan. So yeah, that's the Datto build. Hopefully we'll get Diamond Lance back as quickly as possible so you could take full advantage of this build. Not only that, if you kill an enemy with using Headstone, you also get a Diamond Lance available. And the cool thing about Diamond Lance is it counts as a grenade ability. So that means you can go ahead and keep using your Diamond Lance to kill enemies. And you get your grenade back easier and you can chuck more grenades. So very, very, very good. And then for exotics, it really doesn't matter what you use. Heart of Inmost Light is popular for now, simply because you do more damage while using your grenades as well as your melee. However, there is going to be a certain exotic where if you're using your barricade, you make a whole bunch of stasis shards available. So that's probably going to be the most popular and possibly the most OP. So you can use not only your grenade, but you can also use your barricade as well to do as much damage as possible. So yeah, that's the Datto build. Go ahead and try it out. I'm going to link his video in the description box down below, so you can go ahead and try it out. One of the best builds I've seen personally, and it's just very, very simple. All right then. So finally, what we have here is the Sentinel. Now, I have like 3 or 4 different sorts of Sentinel builds. Like, for example, I can go ahead and show you the Bubble Blinder, which is pretty simple. It's good for like endgame activities such as Vault of Glass, a whole bunch of activities like Deepstone Crypt or any Nightfalls right now. So, it's just made for endgame activities. I could show you the Ursa build I have, which is very good for Grandmaster Nightfalls. So, I could just go ahead and have this equipped, where every time I use my middle tree, like right here, Banner Shield, and then I can make a whole bunch of orbs, and I can use it again pretty soon because it'll convert up to half of my super back automatically. And plus, it's good to have like, ammo finder mods, overload bows, champion types, that sort of thing, just for DPS altogether. But that's too obvious. I'm very weird. I have loads of different builds. What I want to show you guys, and I renamed it because of a hunter build, this is what I like to call One Punch Woman. Pretty weird, yes, I know, but it's one of my most absolutely favorite builds. What you want to do is you want to have top tree Sentinel, so you have your defender bubble. Most important thing of this build is you want to have a shotgun with 1-2 punch. So, the DSI has 1-2 punch. I believe the Ikelos shotgun has 1-2 punch. There's also the Exo class, which is back at Beyond Light. It could also run with 1-2 punch. So it really depends on your preference, but just have a shotgun with 1-2 punch. That is basically all you need. And then what's the most important thing here is, of course, the Synthoceps. Increases melee lunge range, improves your melee and super damage while you're surrounded. This basically makes it so where it's a one-shot kill for most enemies in high-end activities. I use this build for Master Difficulty Grasp of Avarice, and I could one-shot punch enemies during that activity. Very high power level, very resistant towards the enemies, yet I can still one-punch them. And what makes it super useful is because there is a nice little perk right here for Code of the Protector. Melee kills restores health for you and nearby allies. So you don't need a charged melee ability in order to do that. You could just go ahead and kill an enemy and boom, you're healed. So that means every time you kill something, you heal, and you're doing so much damage with Synth Steps that it's not even funny. So you could clear out a room full of ads, no problem, because you're punching the living snot out of them and surviving. And plus, you have Defensive Strike, which you have even more Overshield, and you also have Ward of Dawn, which is not even funny. So yeah, very, very powerful. 1-2 punch likes to get in there as well, so you could do even more damage. And yeah, it's totally ridiculous in my mind. Now, what I also have here is Protective Life in case I go ahead and get in danger, because, you know, a lot of times I do. And then, of course, I do have some extra mods here. So I do have Well of Ordnance. Picking up a Solar Elemental Well grants you additional grenade energy. I honestly don't know why it is in here because I'm not making any Elemental Wells with this. What's probably better is you have like a... you probably want to use Elemental Light or like, using your Sentinel Shield or using Well of Striking, which is a lot better. But what we do have is Will of Ions. Picking up an Arc Elemental Well causes your next melee to deal increased damage. So you're just stacking up 1-2 punch, Synth Steps, as well as Will of Icons. We do have Overcharge Well Maker. Defeating a combatant with a finisher spawns 2 Elemental Wells. And then, hey, I just thought of this. Go ahead and have a Arc chest piece right here. We're just going to use this right here. And then we'll just go ahead and have Well of Striking, which makes it so that picking up an Elemental Well grants you additional melee energy. So you can go ahead and use your Defensive Strike, no problem. So yeah, that is the build. You just want to go ahead and deal as much damage as possible with your melee charges. And yeah, survivability with close quarters combat with a Titan. What else can you do right there? Yeah. And the cool thing is, it really doesn't matter what your stats are. Obviously, you want to have some resilience so you won't die so much, and recovery in case you don't kill an enemy at one shot, which is very unlikely thanks to Synth Steps. And then you probably want to have a good amount of intellect simply because you want to spam Ward of Dawn so you can go ahead and have Armor of Light around you in case a whole bunch of enemies come near you. And yeah, that is One Punch Woman with the Titan Sentinel with Synth Steps. Very, very powerful. I recommend you go ahead and use it. It's very, very good. And yeah, that is it for the video, guys. Thank you guys for watching. This is going to be the last video before the Witch Queen actually comes in. So what I recommend for you guys to do is to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video. I don't say this much, but also follow my Twitter and follow my alternate accounts, including Odyssey. All the videos that are being uploaded in this channel goes to my other channel as well, so go ahead and check that out. It's just good to have alternative media in case, I don't know, a big scary alien decides to have a grudge against YouTube and shuts it down by erasing it from our memories. So we'll have Odyssey there in case something like that happens. It's just good for a backup. And yeah, just remember to have some fun with Destiny because we have a whole bunch of different sort of things happening. So what I am going to do is I am going to live stream pretty much every day once the Witch Queen drops, and we're going to have loads of fun and make some new friends along the way. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. God bless. See you next time, and remember, be excellent to each other. All right, guys, have a good day.